This is the year where the boomers are going to hit the peak age of retirement. More boomers are going to retire in 2024 than have retired previously. And there's a lot of people out there calling it the Silver Tsunami and saying they're going to crash the real estate market. They are going to flood it with inventory when they all downsize and sell their houses after retirement. So is 2024 going to be the year where you can finally afford a house? Well, there's a lot of experts out there saying that's the one thing they can agree on, that it's going to happen in 2024. So do we really think that real estate is going to crash this year? I've been the only one out there saying that it's not going to crash ever since COVID started. So one thing I didn't think about was this boomer situation. So was I finally wrong? Let's dig in right now.
Shut up and sit down.
Just in case we haven't met before, my name is Jeff. This is the Retirement Mentality channel. So I want to change your mentality about retirement. You know, the way your parents retired, the way the boomers retired, just doesn't work the way that it does anymore. We don't have pensions. We need to figure out how to create passive income. We talk a lot about real estate, and it's been a little while since I've done a real estate video here. So I'm really excited to talk about this today. I was seeing a lot of people talking about this silver tsunami, this boomer situation. And like I said in the intro there, I was the only person when COVID started saying that the real estate market was not going to crash. Every YouTuber that was putting out content saying the real estate market was going to crash was just going, their views were going bananas, their channels were blowing up. And I was just quietly over here saying it's not going to blow, it's not going to crash. Everybody told me I was stupid. And now, unfortunately, all those people are priced out of the market. So everybody watches what they want to hear. And so now they're hearing that the boomers are going to crash the market. So unfortunately, I do not believe that the boomers are going to crash the market. And I'm going to tell you a few reasons why they're not going to crash the market. And then I'm going to tell you why they may make it even worse and they may make prices go up even higher. So let's get into the reasons why I think they're not going to crash the market. The first reason is that the boomers have one of the largest gaps in their ages. They go from 60 years old to 78 years old, so almost 20 years is the boomer generation. So the boomers started retiring back in 2011. And have you seen a boomer impact on the real estate so far? No, nobody's talked about how boomers are upsetting the equilibrium of the real estate world. So we haven't seen it yet. Like as I mentioned in the intro there, I think the reason they're calling this the silver tsunami is we're hitting the peak of the number of people who are reaching 65 based on population of the boomer generation. So we'll have the highest number of people hitting 65 and probably retiring this year. But who retires and quits their job in the same year? Nobody does. When you retire, everybody's scared to death to retire. We talk about it so much on this channel, and everybody's worried about the numbers. They're worried if they've calculated everything right. And so they're going to just stay in their lane, and they're not going to do anything crazy. They're not going to sell the house. They're not going to downsize. They're not going to upsize. They're not going to move across the country. Most people just stay in their lane for a little while and just make sure everything's going to be okay. So just because everyone's turned, the biggest number of people are turning 65, doesn't mean they're all going to sell their houses this year. And also the boomers are spread out over 18 years. So they're not all retiring, and all the boomers aren't just selling their houses. The second thing is, we all know the boomers won the real estate game. They talk about it all the time. The boomers have the big houses, and the boomers they have tons of equity. They have big houses, and you know what? They're just not doing what previous generations have done. Why did they win the real estate game? Because they got in early. The boomers started buying real estate when they were very young. And let that be a lesson to you youngsters. If you want to win the real estate game, you got to get in early. And don't give me any of this BS about, well, it was way easier back then. You know what? It's always hard. Buying your first house is always hard. When I bought my first house, it was hard. Rates were 9% when I bought my first house. It's always hard to save up the money and just buy the first one. It's difficult. And you know what? When the boomers were buying houses, guess what? They were buying an 800 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath ranch with a 1-car garage that you couldn't even fit your big ass truck into these days. So you think you got to buy this big, huge house for your first house. Buy a little tiny house for your first house and just get into the game. I digress here a little bit. Let's get back to the boomers. So because the boomers got in early and they have these big, huge houses and they've been in them for a long time and they maybe don't have a mortgage. Well, whether they have a mortgage or not is irrelevant. Maybe they refinance, doesn't matter. But they've built up a ton of equity in these houses, and they may have more than $500,000 of equity they've built up, that they would have profit and would trigger capital gains instance. If you're married, you can have up to 500,000 capital gains. Maybe, they're saying more and more seniors are getting divorced when they hit this silver fox age as well. So if you're single, you only have 250K of capital gains that you can write off before you have to write a big check to the government. So all that equity could be holding some of these boomers in their houses, and they could just wait till they die and get a step up in value when the house passes down. But I don't think that's going to be a huge determination, but it could be part of it. I saw an AARP survey recently, and it said that 60% of boomers want to stay in their house as long as they can. I think that number seems actually a little bit low. I bet it's more than that. We want to stay in their houses. But it's easier than ever now to do a remodel, to get home health care things, and put the bars in the shower, get a nurse to come to your house once a week. It's cheaper and easier than going to a nursing home and some of these other options. So people are staying in their houses longer. My own father is getting one of those creepy chairs that goes up the stairway installed to go down to the basement in their house, the one that's in every horror movie. He's getting that done next week. So, people they're investing a little bit more so they can stay in their houses longer, and that keeps them from going on the market. I don't know what number I'm on. But another reason is that boomers want to keep the big houses. They can afford the upkeep on them. Like I say, most of them don't have mortgages, and if their taxes and their insurance are low, it doesn't cost that much to keep up with these houses. They have the money, and they want to keep a place for family gatherings. They want to keep the Christmas tradition alive. They know their dumbass kids can't afford some big house to invite the whole family over to, so they're going to keep the big house and have everybody over. They love having everybody over just like they used to in the olden times, and they love keeping the traditions alive and doing graduations and Christmases. And if they can afford it, then they're going to stay in those houses just so all the kids and grandkids can come back to their house. That's going to be a big factor. Okay, so those are a few reasons of why the boomers aren't selling their houses and aren't putting them on the market and aren't flooding the market with inventory that's going to drive prices down because there's all this new inventory. The boomers just aren't behaving the way that previous generations did, and they're just kind of doing their own thing, and they're keeping the houses and they're staying in there as long as they can. But I think it can get even worse, and I'm going to tell you some ways that they might be jacking the prices up. Actually, instead of selling their house and downsizing into a smaller house, they're just buying the smaller house and keeping the other house. They're snowbirding in Florida. They're snowbirding in Arizona. They're going to these warmer climates. They're going to where their grandkids are, and they're scooping up a second house. They're going to snowbird there and then maybe rent it out during the rest of the year, maybe not, and just use it as a second home. So they're actually creating less inventory by not putting a house on the market over here and then buying another house over here. There's a term in the housing market called turnover, and it's how many times a house sells. And we talk about the length of time that people own houses. The length of time people own houses is getting longer, and the number of times that inventory turns over is getting less, and it's just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking inventory even more. As we all know, there's no inventory out there, but the boomers aren't helping. And if they're not snowbirding, if they aren't actually downsizing, a lot of these boomers are deciding to keep the old house, buy the smaller house, move into it, and then rent the big house out to increase their income in retirement. And that just sings to my heart. I'm a real estate guy. I try to get people to buy investment properties. So when they're doing this, I think it's a really smart decision. But it's not good for those of you who haven't entered the housing market yet or who are trying to buy a new house. It's just shrinking that inventory even more. And even if they were to put their big McMansions on the market and downsize, that's not going to help the first-time home buyers and the people trying to enter the market where the real bottleneck of this housing crisis is. They're not buying the McMansions and the big house on the lake and the 6-bedroom thing that they had their family Christmases at. They're shopping for the new construction, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, little house in a neighborhood with a small yard for easy upkeep. And it's the same house that all the first-time home buyers are looking to buy. So all those first-time home buyers are competing for the same segment of the market. And it's even worse than that because these guys probably got cash in their pocket. So now Mr. and Mrs. First-time home buyer are trying to get their 3% FHA loan together while Mr. and Mrs. Boomer are out there with cash scooping up a little house and renting out their other house. And who's going to buy the big house? I don't know, some middle-aged person. If you made it this far, good for you. I've only got 2 more points left, and I'm really proud of you. So give yourself a reward and subscribe to the channel down there if you haven't done that, or maybe hit the like button, or maybe go get a beer. Just come back if you're going to do that. And let's go back into my last 2 points I want to make here. I tell you what, man, the news today, all they could talk about was interest rates. When are they going to go down? Could they go down? What if they go down? What if they do a rate drop? What if the Fed going to do? That's all they talked about on the news today, it seemed like. Because you know what? It's the same thing as the people clicking on all the videos that the real estate market's going to crash. If the real estate market's not going to crash, all we can do is hope that interest rates are going to finally come down. But I got news for you, folks. Interest rates aren't coming down. I could do a whole video on why interest rates aren't coming down, but just real quick, they're not coming down because A, the economy is too good, and B, this is just where interest rates are supposed to be. 3% interest rates is not a normal place for interest rates to be. They should be between 6 and 7%. I said this 3 years ago on my channel. I've been saying it ever since. Rates aren't going to come down below 6%. And now all the experts who were predicting the crashes before that are all catching up to what I've been saying for the last 3 years are saying, oh, you know what? Maybe prices are going to go up about 6% this year. That's what I said last year and the year before that and the year before that. I said, we're not going to see crazy 10 to 15% increases in home prices. We're going to see modest 4 to 7% increases. But if you're going to wait another year and interest rates don't go down and home prices go up another 6, 7%, you're just getting farther and farther behind. So just don't wait for the interest rates. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. That's the best advice you can get right there. And the last thing I want to talk about quickly, when I was doing a little bit of research for this video and I clicked into Reddit, boy, there's a rabbit hole you can just get into there. And I went to search for Silver Tsunami and boomers buying real estate. And then there was a lot of discussions about, well, what if we just wait for them to die? Well, you sick people, you know what? That's stupid, because if the biggest number of boomers is turning 65 this year, what's the average rate of people live in America? 85? So you got 20 more years for that. So that doesn't even make sense. That's a stupid argument. So just forget about that too. So that's it. That's why I think that the boomers are not going to crash the market. And if you've been waiting to get in, if you're waiting for interest rates, if you're waiting for the boomers to crash, we're running out of things to crash the market. COVID didn't crash the market. Now the boomers aren't going to crash the market. I mean, the economy's doing great. You got to have something to trigger an event to crash the market. Unless something happens and we lose 30% of the labor force, you know, we're going to have bigger problems. But maybe house prices will go down. I don't know what would cause that. I'm not predicting that. I think prices are going to continue to go up. Interest rates are going to continue to be the same. And if you're ready to buy a house, buy a house. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.